The first step is to lower the boom. This will probably be a two-man job. In this video, we're going to have an introduction to the setup and calibration for a Micron Weedwiper. We have two tanks, both at 20 litres each, one for clean water and one for chemical. So initially you would set up with the clean water, which would then go through a filter, a pump, solenoid and through into the pads. And this is controlled through a hydrostat box, which is then measured through two sensors on the pad. Starting with the 20 litre flushing tank. For calibration we use 1 tablespoon of salt in 5 litres of water. Over here we have a 20 litre chemical tank. On preparing the solution for the chemical, we would normally suggest around 30 to 50% mixture. This could be glyphosate or any recommended chemical. Okay, the setup of the machine. There are two sensors within the pad. They measure the conductivity of the moisture levels. The controller sets the moisture level, wet but not dripping. So you would get dripping if there's too much going through the pad. As you wipe your weeds, the pads will then dry out. Depending on the controller and the sensitivity you've set it at, this will then turn on the pump, which will replace the solution on the pad. For calibration purposes, both tanks have an on-off tap. We would use the flushing tank or clean water, and this one would be chemical cap would be closed. It would then go through the filter, which is then pumped on through the pump and through the solenoid, which is on-off depending on the controller, which would then go down into and feed the pads. We first start off by putting the salt into the clean water. At this point we use 1 tablespoon of salt to 5 litres of water. Remembering to give it a good mix before you start off. So at this stage, to moisten the pads, we would turn the controller on, or the on-off switch, set the controller to max, and then the whole pad will start dripping. You need to at least put 5 litres of the water solution through the pad before you start putting any chemical solution through. After turning the sensitivity down on the controller, this can be between 2 and 3 on the dial, which then turns the pump off, which reduces the dripping within the pad. Because this is in a controlled area, there's still a certain amount of dripping because the pad is not being wiped by the weeds within the field. Depending on how many weeds you have within the field, the crop, different situations, the pad will then start to dry out. The controller, which you have here, will sense how much moisture or chemical it needs to then put back on. This is done by turning the pump back on to replenish any moisture. After every use, we need to flush this system out with clean water. By doing that, you need to ensure that the chemical tank is turned off. and the clean water tank is turned on. This will then flush the system out, and by doing that we turn the controller to maximum. This should only be done in a controlled area. For any more information, consult the manual.